Hi everyone, my name is Ella and I am a co-host of The Waste Class, a channel which goal is to bring you a post-Soviet leftist perspective on left-wing topics. And today we are going to talk about Campism. Campism is a division between two camps. On the one hand, it is imperialist West, and on the other hand, it's the post-anti-imperialist opponents. So you already get a sense of the aspects we're going to talk about in this episode. Actually, I think I have never heard a person that is not from a post-Soviet country using the word campism. And it is very unfortunate because this word does show us very clearly, very precisely what problems we have with our sentiments towards international politics, especially in leftist communities. And before we start, I want to remind you that it is really important to support our channel, to give us thumbs up, to subscribe, to leave a comment, because it is a very new channel. Every kind of activity will influence its track, and hopefully people who watch our content and like it will also show us their support. I'm talking about you. Yes. You know, when I was a child, like maybe 13, 14 years old, like we had a fun activity with my friend. We just talked to each other in English while we were on subway in Moscow.
Guys, you're so
cool. That people would not understand us.
Wow, you're such a valley girl. Oh my god.
It kind of feels like this right now.
It's alright. It's alright. It's a normal post-Soviet copium with your subaltern imperialist state. Yeah.
Just two teenage girls talking about campism. How was it? Remember this meme? Someone said, "I could never imagine you going camping." But we joked, yes. I could never imagine you going campist. And this is how I want to be remembered.
Exactly.
Because this is the topic of our conversation today. So, today here with me is Sasha Fokina. Sasha is my friend, comrade, and she is also an expert on so many things. One of them is this campist logic, and she has written a very interesting, smart, deep article on it in English, by the way. It talks extensively about Russian anti-colonial struggle, using air quotes all the time. It has very interesting examples. Some of them are deeply horrifying, and go and read it. But also, Sasha is a political organizer, and I'm gonna give you a word in a second. And she is a part of many collectives and initiatives, and she will also advertise you certain sources that are now available in English language. So, Sasha, please tell us about yourself and also about your experience as a post-Soviet leftist. How did your life in Russia influence your political views?
Many thanks, Ella, for having me. It's really exciting, and I think it's long overdue that we actually get such a space to bring the voices of the post-Soviet progressives and leftists to the English-speaking audience. So very happy to be here. Thank you guys for watching. Yes, I'm a member and an activist in multiple organizations. I'm not speaking on either of their behalf today, by the way. I'm just a solo independent journalist and political sort of analyst in here, but I'm also proudly a part of the network called Radical Democracy. It's an organization of the progressive pro-democratic initiatives. We're now over 50, but we've been growing for the last year quite fast. And the whole idea is to coordinate labor rights, environmental, feminists, Antifa, and many other groups that belong to the wider progressive leftist spectrum. But to coordinate and to actually form a leftist political actor down the road. But for now, we're just doing a lot of cool things and trying to really establish ourselves as a real network that is full of actual communal solidarity, and, self-education as well, the practices of radical democracy and such. And one of the projects that are now in solidarity with the radical democracy is called The Radical, the newsletter. And it's a small group of editors. I am happily a part of this, but we have authors from different post-Soviet countries, and we're trying to address the underreported issues in the region. So please follow the link in the bio. I'm sure Ella will leave it. Thank you.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your background, about your expertise, and what sorts of fields are you expert on, and all of these things, and also maybe a little bit about how your beliefs develop, whether you have been yourself maybe a campus at some point of your life, or maybe not. Yeah.
You know this phrase.
If you want to talk about this.
If
you're ready to talk about this.
It's all right.
I feel like we all have been in this place where we were, like, when we were younger especially, and we didn't know a lot, like maybe we were like campus. For example, when you're of like Jewish descent or Jewish background, it's like sort of a default that you're pro-Israel because you just don't know anything about this. And then people start to learn, they like change, like sometimes, yeah, not always, their perspectives. And also the same thing can be like about growing up in the Western country. For example, in the US, you may have learned certain perspectives, and then you like learn more about it, and you're like super horrified by what has been done, and it's like very understandable. But also maybe you have not learned enough to not become a campus, and you might have become a tanky or whatever. And
we'll
also,
talk about those notions later.
Yeah, we want to just open up like this discussion, and it's not like in a judging way. And we're also not trying to change your views, to be honest. It's more like so that you have this information, like it's somewhere in your heads. And maybe then it will, like, the seeds that we sow, maybe they will grow at some point.
But this inviting introduction, we're kicking off the discussion.
Campism 101.
But I have to agree with you that there's definitely no shame in growth of one's politicization and political awareness. I think that it's necessary, and it cannot come without acknowledging that you're not born with Das Kapital in your head. You have to make it. So, but I will be a case in point. Let's see. I'm not that old. You may have guessed. Also, please don't hate me for everything I'm going to tell you. This is my way.
This is a practice of like not using cancel culture and actually try to listen to other people before judging them. Imagine this. Like, let's use Sasha as an example of this. I'm so sorry.
Ella is also laughing because I coordinate a group that's trying to stop the cancel culture and make it more care culture. But whatever, without all of this. Please don't hate me. I come from Moscow, upper middle class. I went to university there. I studied international relations with a focus on the Middle East, the peak of the Syrian war, and the beginning of the war in East Ukraine before the full-scale invasion. Complete brainwash, a lot of names like Mearsheimer and Morgenthau, who find all those very elegant, but also very direct and honest, I'm putting it all in quotes, arguments for how Russia needed to protect itself because, states just work like this, like a human to a human is a wolf, and so are states, this whole thing. Noteworthy mentioning, the dean of my faculty was actually invited to the Tucker Carlson show recently, where he once again got to promote his idea of Russia actually needing to use the nuclear weaponry against not Ukraine, but Europe, because those are the European elites who forgot who they talking to. That's basically the executive summary. The rest of a bunch of professors from my faculty are also part of this Kremlin think tank. You can look it up, Valdai. That's basically where you can find all the talking points on any political destination the Russian imperialism will choose next. Yeah, it's a more civilian part of this information hub in Russia, because most of the stuff is still done through intelligence. So this is a great start for understanding international relations and politics. And so I proceeded to go into Tel Aviv University for a master's in both security and diplomacy, which I fucking gag from.
Cherry on top.
Yeah, this is so unhinged. I'm strongly propose, like, whoever didn't get from this circus I created here, I am strongly pro-Palestinian, and of course I would have never gone if I had all the knowledge that or even honestly 1/100th of the knowledge that I have now. I didn't back then. I was just thinking that this is a great opportunity at the early COVID that Israel started lifting the isolation and COVID restrictions. So I went for that instead of sitting in the Zoom. And there was it. I spent there 2.5 years. I am disgusted by the right-wing propaganda in there and how deeply enrooted it is, and I could rant about the experience of being in Israel and being in the West Bank for the whole length of this episode.
It's for another episode.
Invite me for the other episode, please. But yes, I went to the West Bank. I went with this NGO, anti-occupationalist NGO, Breaking the Silence. They take the interested people to Hebron and to the South Hebron Hills, where also the village of Masaferita is the one that got a documentary winning the Oscars, which didn't help really the village. You asked how does all of this impact one's views, and it would have been funny, although it isn't funny at all, that I got to observe classmates from both degrees going really, really patriotic about either of the wars, and I left Moscow before the beginning of the full-scale invasion, but I really could see how I'm, through social media and through conversations, I'm losing the circle that I had because of our differences and discrepancies around the war in Ukraine. And of course, to a much bigger extent, no questions asked, the same happened after October 7th and the rally around the Zionist flag. When I was in Russia, and I grew up there as well, I think one of the traits that I inherited from the surroundings was general lack of trust towards authorities. I was like, again, we were well off. My family at that point were doing quite okay, but there was, first of all, I feel like in the air there was always this feeling of this grand disappointment of the Soviet or socialist project, and then everyone surviving through 90s. If you didn't know, Russia had the whole shock therapy thing going on, and everyone almost died, basically. Yay, neoliberalism. So there was this, but also I was socialized within the liberal framework of basically the totalitarianism being equal to socialism, and the idea of if you view the state as a protector of the private property, you're kind of seeing that state neglecting this concept as such is it going wrong. So my idea was even further, and in my uni years I became libertarian, so it was private property first, all the other structures later, but generally extremely anti-authoritarian. And funny enough, there's an essay by Noam Chomsky, who I guess is cancelled at this point, but again, the essay still exists, so I don't know, cancel me too. But he talks about how radical libertarian, like anarcho-capitalist thought is so damn close to leftism, to the left anarchism, and to the left, like progressive leftist thought, that is just one step of realizing where the source of the power and oppression is. And I did it, and only then I discovered that essay. So I was very validated in my route. But yes, I was extremely disappointed by any remains of libertarian ideas in me by February 2022, because this logic gave no fucking explanation to whatever was going on. And since then, I converted to our Father. Yes, I
You finally accepted the one and true God.
Yes.
The only man that is accepted in these circles, by the way.
Cancelled yet, yes.
He is partially cancelled, but because of his achievements, he's still allowed. Unfortunately, we cannot rewrite the history. If we could,
yes,
only if we could.
If only we could have told Marx that he's not the greatest feminist I've heard of.
Please treat your wife correctly, or you will go down in history in a very bad light.
Even Silvia Federici will appear a more progressive person in comparison to you if you don't do this. Anyways, this is, guys, if you catch those memes, you belong to here, but if not, please bear with us. Anyways, yes, the war in Ukraine is something that not only emotionally devastated me, not only something that changed my life because I haven't been home since then, and as of now, because I'm a journalist, I'm not able to go. Yeah, I became a part of a leftist podcast community, and at first I was just, skill kind of person, but they indoctrinated me, and now I'm a speaker there too, and what do you know? It's working out quite well, I think. Another thing is that, of course, actually starting organizing and being a part of the Radical Democracy when we started it off a year and a half ago, this changed my life in exile, in migration, the actual experience of trying to build something through errors, through hating this occasionally, but generally speaking, I've worked corporate, I've worked in newsrooms, I've worked in different gigs remotely and in the office and such. I couldn't ever say that I felt as fulfilled, and I had an idea that I actually saw that the results of my work being at all relevant to people. I'm not saying the struggle is over. First of all, it will never stop. Secondly, now very important work time, but this is something that has, not only through validation and this emotional part, proved to me the correct approach, but through actually seeing people and seeing the projects that they bring and the ideas that they have and all of this. This is so much more fruitful, humane, and honestly just fucking kind, but also it makes sense. It's not just the kumbaya stuff. It's actually fucking makes sense. So all of this has convinced me, and since then I'm never surprised about the news. But then again, I'm always very sad. So that's the the drawback that the superpower gives you.
We're gonna talk a little bit about your experience as a leftist in Europe, because we both live in Germany, and Sasha moved to Germany quite recently, like half a year ago, I think, right?
Almost a year.
Almost a year? Wait, what the fuck?
Time runs fast, girl.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Wow. Almost a year ago. And you're very active politically. So you, as a political organizer, you obviously take part in a lot of events and you know a lot of people in general. Sasha is very extroverted.
I am not.
In comparison to me, at least.
Okay.
let's say
no
so.
offense. Yes.
We do not only have connections to Russian migrants or Russian-speaking migrants. I'm also including here people from other post-Soviet countries, but also to some people who have European background and sometimes American background, so Western background, as I would define it. Just tell me a little bit, how do you feel as a post-Soviet leftist? Is there anything that disturbs you or surprises you in Western leftists that is noticeable?
Let's start with the good things. I think that one of the things that I genuinely appreciate about, well, I get to observe the European leftist communities is that there actually is, in different countries it's different, but there actually is quite a tradition of, cooperation and actually organizing and such. I live in a more traditional place than a traditionalist place than Ella does, but from what I see, out of the organizations that actually go and do like at least a demonstration, we're not talking about demonstrations being the only, if any, political work, but that's for later things. But most of those organizations are the old school peace organizations. Okay, they might not be entirely leftist in my understanding, but those like post 60s generation of activists, the networks still are there, and I think that shall the time come, this would actually pick up. Similar thing for, let's say, environmental protest in here. The people are rather committed to the idea, especially in Germany. The holy spirit of recycling is all around here, but there's actually anti-capitalists who are also fighting on their own. At the same time, there's a lot of things to say in terms of, let's say, annoyance or irritation. I want to make a disclaimer that there definitely are leftists, no matter what cultural socialization they have the background, and there are always adequate leftists. I want to make a disclaimer that obviously in any sort of cultural socialization, there would be the leftists that I like and I don't like, because, there's always about the leftists. The thing is that you will always find someone either too reactionary or too liberal or something. There's never the right left present in your city.
I
But
think like the stable future of being a leftist that you are constantly being annoyed by other leftists.
This is it. I don't want to. I don't want to frame it like this, even though I am annoyed. Don't get me wrong. I'm actually really angry as well. But the people that I'm angry at would be the group that would probably identify themselves as the left. But I just see inconsistencies because, in my understanding, it's either not. I mean, let's just go with examples. Whatever, you know what? So the big criticism of the European as we say, Euro left or the Western left, is the focus on the identity politics and all this like substructural culture wars. And I think it's a pretty established and mainstreamized point as of now that the Western left, after the Wall Street and the 2008 crisis, has lost the optics of the working class and of actually working with people, and went into the cultural parts of it created by our elites so kindly to be distracted, and then call every farmer who doesn't understand their environmental measures a fascist. This is all a big conversation of why the far right is on the rise in Germany as well. Long story short, they are fulfilling the vacuum that could have been filled by the socially oriented leftists, but it hasn't been because they were fighting the culture wars. This is not only a trait typical of the Western left. I would just call them left-leaning liberals, and would call it a night, because in the end of the day, I also sense, like kind of demophobic snobism about the people, because there can be like a high-key academic reading, a very advanced circle, or I don't know, like very advanced intellectual stuff that is targeting the urban class. But in the end, no one really wants to work with the people. And in the end, the ones who do want to work with the people are AfD, who are legit going into the unions and miraculously are winning. I'm really concerned about my status right now. What else? So yeah,
Very relevant point.
I'm fingers crossed. Another thing is that a lot of people also who would call themselves leftist, see that as an identity, not as a project or work. Again, it's not only typical of the West, but since in the West things are still also good, or at least not so visibly catastrophic for the average population, it stands out much more. What do I mean? I was in Berlin for May 1st, and honestly, I was very, very impressed. It was probably the biggest demonstration that I've been a part of in my life. We were with a rather seriously politically articulate bloc on the demo, not like a party bloc, but it still did feel like a fat ass party. And then it's not even just about people drinking or not drinking. I hate all of this policing, honestly. Do your thing. Do your thing. Joy is revolutionary. Read up. But still, it's a gathering. We listen to music. We come there. Some people take pictures. In Germany, not as much because Datenschutz, the data protection thing, is a sacred thing in here. That's how we're gonna win against the meta glasses. Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly. When we have all our names on our houses, literally, you can just check where you live, but Datenschutz, yeah.
But that's also a part of this fucking thing, inconsistency. And then, I don't know, for instance, I was there with my husband. He was wearing a coat with a symbol of his also organization. And a girl approached us, toots, 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 like a friend of a friend. And she legit, she didn't give him shit, but she was like, why are you dressed like this? And he was like, what do you mean? And she was like, Berlin thing, the Berlin thing. All black.
You don't need to explain because we all know what it means. Yeah.
And he's like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, it's May 1st. It's May 1st. And he said, exactly, it's fucking May 1st. So they had this absolute gap of understanding of what this fucking event was. It wasn't a party. It wasn't an occasion to listen to Ikemel at some rally. It was a chance to actually, I don't know if it was. For me, I met people from a comrade organization. This was a good moment of gathering. And again, I was just impressed by how many people can be allowed to go on the streets. But generally speaking, this is subculture. This is an identity thing. This is where it could end. And this, I think, is true for a lot of people in here. And this has to do not only with the left, but with I blame the neoliberals, but that's a separate topic. But generally, even if people think that they're politicized, they stay within a very safe realm of activity, if any. Even I don't mind enjoying political gigs or events or whatever, like we did we made an event together.
No shade.
I'm
actually a little bit envious that you were there.
I wasn't there. I didn't make it.
You were not there, but you were around there. You were somewhere in her vicinity. But anyway, sorry.
I respect her music, but again, don't pretend it's activism or political organization. They both can be true. I can like the artist and not see her concert as a goal of a demonstration on May 1st, God forbid. But so there's a lot of that. Another thing, I brought up the environmental movements, and I had such a cute situation. I was looking after a cat of a friend, and his girlfriend, whatever, came with a friend of hers. Basically, they were both environmental activists, and they go in. I was just looking after the cat. I was staying in that apartment temporarily. I wasn't even living in Germany at that point. And they enter, interact with the cat, and then the guy, no, nothing, just two phrases of, where you from, whatever. And then he's like, do you go to Fridays for Future? It's the environmental action that used to be weekly. I don't know if it's even still happening. I don't think so.
It's not happening very often since, I don't know, in the last year. I have seen, stickers, posters, even around my city, which is not a big city at all. But still, yeah.
I think they even made an announcement that they're switching the strategy, but my God. Anyways, this guy asked me if I go to Fridays for Future. I don't, because I didn't even live there back then. Say no. And he kicks off a beautiful monologue about how it's our planet, and actually everyone has to chip in terms of their stance for the future, literally for future, for the clean environment, and fighting against the climate change and everything. And again, I'm in full support of resisting the polycrisis. I come from a place that, apart from just taking
that generates polycrises.
yeah.
Saying this.
But
it's actually true, though.
Working people everywhere in the world will be the first to lose everything when as climate change picks up. Working class everywhere will drown. There's no argument about this. But first of all, where does a dude get the fucking audacity to tell me that I'm gonna die from polycrisis if I'm much more likely to walk down the street and be killed by a man? I think that, first of all, First of all, is that a track whole sentence?
First of all, shut up.
First of all, shut the fuck up. Secondly, he even asked me where I'm from. So, assuming I'm at all political person, you should at least fucking ask what my situation is. I think I'm sorry. Maybe he was someone. Maybe he actually contributed actively to the community. But to go out and shame other people for not joining your extremely privileged protest is also quite something.
Hard to enjoy knowing that all of this is stolen land.
Not to mention all the environmental damage done by creating a town here.
Can't forget about the emissions. I mean, I have a hybrid, but Talia has a truck.
You're wearing Shein, which means like 7 Malaysian children lost their fingers making that shirt.
This is thrifted, but thank you very much.
Margot, they still lost their fingers.
Well, Maya's white, which I've apologized for a number of times, okay? And snaps for acknowledging my privilege. Thank you.
Can we not do the woke Olympics bullshit today, guys?
Oh my god.
Sorry, I meant individuals of differing personalities and privileges.
There you go.
Hey! Excuse me.
How's it going, brother?
Can I borrow your phone?
Maya, call the cops.
What?
Maya, call the cops now.
And it's really hard to, well, honestly empathize with this and to build connections like this. I want to say last but not least, I don't know if the proportion of such people is actually very big, but I think it is very important, especially since both you and I come from Russia, and ontologically speaking, for the leftists from Russia and in many countries of the post-Soviet space, the Russian imperialism is a very important issue. So, of course, the question of Ukraine and the question of perception of the Russian regime and its elite has demonstrated some of the gaps. It's inevitable to feel it. I don't know what your experience was. Maybe you can share as well. But I am still shocked when I'm having a conversation with a person and they say all the right things about criticizing NATO and the Epstein class and, the American hegemony everywhere, yada, 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 only to go as far as to say that any power resisting it is beautiful and Putin is fighting the states, so we shall support him. You feel like you're gonna smash your head against the wall and still not prove a fucking thing, because the second you start saying anything, you're called a liberal psyop or a CIA psyop or some other psyop, but in the end of the day, they are the ones falling victim of the Kremlin psyop, so I'm done. Listen to your fellow comrades, to activists from other countries. What the fuck is this, guys?
You guys, you have to get the shit together and start thinking, because I do not understand how people that are already so based in so many things can still ignore such basic reality that Russia is a neoliberal state, neoliberal in such a pure almost definition of neoliberal, with all the consequences for the people, and see certain people as fighters against Western imperialism, when clearly this is not what is going on?
In the US, we're taught that the collapse of the Soviet Union was a good thing that brought freedom to the people of Russia and Eastern Europe. But in reality, it was an economic disaster that left people starving and impoverished. And this is because the Soviet socialist economy was basically just handed over to private oligarchs. So when young Putin was first coming to power, he said, I'm going to crack down on these oligarchs and stabilize our economy. And that's largely what he did, as he took much of the Russian energy industry out of the hands of these oligarchs so it could be reinvested in public works projects or the development of Russian industry. And the US was friends with Putin at first, but once he started doing this, they were like, hey man, we want to control all of your resources. And then they started sanctioning Russia and doing military buildup in East Europe and meddling in Ukraine and all of this. So Putin's not a socialist, and that's why I'm not actually a Putin simp, as some people would have you believe. I would much prefer that Russia was still governed by the Communist Party. However, he is building up Russia's manufacturing base and challenging the interests of Western imperialist powers.
I think we can start now talking about campism.
Yeah.
And this is clearly a result of campism. And Sasha, if you can explain more, what is it? Like this campism thing, how did it even evolve? Like, why are we here 2026 talking about fucking campism? Like, it's such a thing of a past.
It is a thing of a past, but the issue is that we're still in the same.
We're still in the past.
We're still in the past. Back to the future. Yes, the notion of campism is, of course, something that was coined by the Cold War. And associated terms would be a tanky, a person calling for the Soviet tanks in order for Eastern European republics to stay within the Eastern camp. So yeah, it's literally what it is. It's campism, not to be mistaken with camping, as Ella has fairly pointed out. It is a mindset in which most commonly it is anti-Western. So you see the world as a couple of camps. Most commonly, again, this would be the Western camp, what we call the global North. It would be NATO, it would be the United States as the beholder of the greatest capitalist elite in the world. It would be Europe. It would be the rich, maybe, occasionally, sometimes it would be the rich, neoliberal influenced East Asian countries and such, and of course it's Israel. So the idea of campist is if a power, no matter how reactionary and terrible and imperialist and absolutely anti-human it is, it doesn't matter as long as it opposes, let's say, American imperialism. You see the problem. You guys see the fucking problem right away. Basically, it's geopolitical identity politics. I don't know. You just choose your team and you stick to it no matter what. A more obvious example, and I think this notion isn't really used in such a perspective, but I genuinely believe that it's perfectly applicable. In Germany, there's the so-called anti-Deutsche movement of basically it used to be a fraction of an Antifa group, of one of the many, and then it split off over the question of Israel, and basically there are still many groups and many individuals in different groups advocating the idea that Germany has an inherent debt to the state of Israel. Again, Jewish people are equalized to the state of Israel, not a leftist take whatsoever. We're skipping all of this. Germany is indebted, and out of the guilt and this nationalism, you see how those identities are just constructed over very weird, moralistic kind of identities that want to be somewhat nationalistic and not. So, like a German nationalist doesn't want to be a nationalist, like, for Germany, so he goes and does the same thing for Israel.
Becomes a nationalist for some other country.
Exactly. So in this
Useful
sense,
logic.
when I speak to people from BSV, I guess the audience from Germany would understand it's one of the campus movements that are somewhat present and are still masking, I think, as somewhat adequate force, but I don't believe this. So when I talk to people from there, and they are almost religiously trying to convince me that yes, all those repressions and all this suppression of the working class and of the indigenous people and of women and everyone fucking else in Russia is really bad. But, and then you start basically, it's not about invalidating our pain, guys, but it is about that as well. But honestly, it is somewhat disrespectful because, well, you're thinking, I'm a comrade, you're a comrade, we can trust each other. I will tell you how it is. I'm in actual exile. I'm actually outlawed. I actually cannot return home where I haven't been to 5 years. Maybe just give it a go.
Maybe just fucking listen.
That, for sure. I mean, again, I'm not gonna argue that just because I live there or I speak the language or I'm in the community, I have the most universalist take because, again, you know, even in our circles of more or less progressive left, there would be disagreements. That's completely fine. But not a single fucking person would be saying that Putin is a fucking liberator and anti-colonial hero. As
he's fighting against oligarchs, actually. Because when I first saw this take that Putin is actually a pro-worker guy because he's fighting oligarchs, I mean, just one conversation with any Russian that has any kind of understanding of Russian politics will clear these things out. It's not what is happening at all. And sorry for a small, also example. There is a very prominent leftist on TikTok. We have talked about her in our last video, and I'm not going to mention her again. But one thing that I saw in her content, she was replying to a comment from a Cuban. Then a person is trying to say you something and you just okay, whatever, you are Cuban in the US. This means that you cannot even talk to me. You cannot say to me anything because I know better, because I read some book, and not to understand that there is this imperial dynamic between you and this person who is writing you a comment, and not even try to understand how did they get to this point of view, and just simply discrediting them because they are oh, you're some brainwashed Cuban because you're not pro-Cuba. This is literally imperialist type of thinking.
I mean, with that said, I would argue that as in with Cuba, or I think Iran is a easier example to pick up in this sense, because the huge chunks of diaspora, of the Iranian diaspora in Europe and in the States, are pro-Shah. This is the most conservative people, second most conservative people in the country after the Islamists. And of course, they are consistently extremely radically pro-American, radically pro-Israel. Those would be the actual people going to comments and saying, yes, Israel, please liberate us. And I want to say that there is a ton of extremely whitewashed Cubans in the States as well. And that's a norm. But just to make an argument based on this identity is, well, just racist. So yeah, you need to talk about substance. But basically, I think getting back to the initial point, I think the underlying logic of campism, and especially anti-Western campism, is this idea that only the West, only the United States can oppress so hard that we have to fight it. This is the worthy cause. The rest, China cannot oppress that hard. Russia cannot oppress that hard. Not other single imperialist entity that functions in the exact same logic of extractivism and settlements and oppression. None of them compare to the United States. Guys, this is no-go. We should understand that imperialism in general, read Lenin, it's the simplest stuff. Imperialism actually only exists in competition. They need many imperialism. It's like this whole oligarchic international. They can't exist without each other. They need to sometimes touch hands in Alaska, but they will play this game, this geopolitical game of fighting for resources and such. But generally, please keep in mind, a state is a method of the elites to overcome the class contradictions. So in this sense, it will only be exploited for that. You can't support the state. Don't be stupid. Jesus Christ. I'm so sorry. I'm lost on the arguments because I've had this argument for so many times. Just stop building identity around a national project unless it's, a nation that's actually trying to establish itself under the genocidal terms. But generally speaking, nation states are not it. It's not about the people. If you're gonna fight for states, do that, but know that you're a statist, an institutionalist, and at best a social democrat. That's it.
This example of anti-Deutsch, I feel like it's very representative for all type of campists that exist in this world, because their identity is built not on their national identity, like not I'm American, I defend here the American interests, for example, right? They build it on anti-American identity. So like I am then pro China, I'm pro North Korea or whatever, pro Russia, and so on and so forth. So like I will pick up the United States enemies and I will fight for them. It's basically like the inverted logic of the nationalist identity. So it's like in the end it's the same thing. It's like the same as anti-Deutsche are like fighters for Israel or whatever. And again, when I try to imagine like how would I think as an American, I understand that people, when they try to talk about certain leftist topics, they always encounter this, so now you're pro-China when you talk about this, and it's kind of a rabbit hole. So like they start to talk about certain leftist topics, maybe very local, and then they start like to develop this campus identity, like it's snowballing always, because you try to defend the leftism in general, and you snowball into becoming a nationalist for other countries, just because you feel like if you defend finally, like for example China, then everyone who does not agree with you will like, okay, now we can build socialism and so on and so forth. But it's not what is going to happen. Like even if everyone would agree that China is not bad, America is bad.
Every state is bad, guys. Spoiler alert.
Every state is bad. It's like it's even easier to agree on that kind of, if you think about this, yeah. But anyway, what I was trying to say when I gave that example of like Cubans, yeah, of course, as you said, your national identity, your gender identity, sexuality, whatever, it does not give you the right to speak for everyone, for every person of this identity. And obviously, just the experience of certain identity does not give you the right to say that what you think is truth and what everyone else says is not truth. Yeah, it's not as easy as it sounds. But anyway, still, it's very important when you are, for example, a European or American, British person, whatever, like Israeli, to try to actually listen to other person and try to like find certain things, valid experience, right? And you can go on from this experience and to start like to have a conversation with this person. And until this happens, there is always going to be like this imperial logic between like Westerners and people from other parts of this world. What I am trying to do this with video, or obviously just try to explain that it's really important not to dismiss, like, because it plays into the logic that Americans don't want to listen to other people. They don't want to know what is actually going on in these countries. And people, because of this, sometimes people actually turn to rightists, like to right-wing people, because they feel like they listen to them and they view their experiences as something that is valid, that actually happened to them. Anecdote time.
Anecdote relates to the part about the media work. So that's and for the post-Soviet upbringing. So a cliffhanger for you. Another thing that I think is important to mention about campism is that we're not the only ones who know about its existence. I think that the very real and very fair anti-Western sentiment in the, let's say, formerly colonized communities, such as in West Africa, they have this grievance that is completely understandable and is actually rooted in the material conditions of people there. It is translated into anti-colonial rhetoric, and that's why we also have the big heritage of the communist anti-colonial struggle all over what used to be called the Third World, now we call Global South. I heard this notion is okay again, but you guys check.
The Third World?
Police us in the comments.
Yeah, I also heard that it is a product of campism of the Cold War. I mean, that First World, the West, Second World, the USSR, and or the Eastern Bloc, and the Third World is like the rest of the countries. So it's like it's not inherently racist, like in this logic, but it became racist like later.
It became racist. It's been reclaimed, and I think actually getting to some of the conclusions of our conversation, it is actually very important to find the third option. So when you're presented with, which camp do you support? Are you this or are you this? Are you anti this or anti that? The opposite thing. You have to keep in mind that these are not the only two options available, that this is a hook, it's a catch. Becker. Don't just accept the rules of this game that are just to divert your energy to argue about the geopolitical questions you cannot even start influencing at all. So there's also this whole space that all of those discussions are a lot applied by actors who don't do shit. That's just a fact.
And honestly cannot do shit. But also, if we could stop a war, like we would. But it's not
Right
up
now.
to us. Yeah.
But where I was taking it is that we are not the only ones aware of this dynamic. It is very much exploited as well. And it gets a bit funny, but I personally, in my journalistic work, focus on the stuff that Russia does actually all over Africa, but primarily in the Sahel region. And I have to say, the audacity of the appeal to the anti-colonial sentiments in there, it's quite. I want to say it's sometimes they're so unhinged. I almost admire this, but it's unbelievable for anyone who has been to Russia to hear that, for instance, a Burkina Faso organization that is called the Total Support for President of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
I actually have written this down, like the citation from your article about this total support. For
I love them.
Putin.
I love
It's just like it's amazing. On a lower tier, a Russia-affiliated Ivorian NGO called Total Support for Vladimir Putin in Africa even launched an international prize in its home, honoring what the founder of NGO called Putin's Liberating Act for Africa. It even sounds like extremely imperialist.
that too, but I just love it. I love this organization. I don't love this organization, seriously, but I love this organization. It's probably just a paid thing of like some Ruski Dom, Russian house, semi-embassy affiliated, semi-intelligence affiliated group. It could be just genuine interest of one unhinged person. What I love to imagine that it's like a intensely pro-Putin unk who just got access to computer and caps locked total support for President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, and just went on and launched a fucking anti-colonial prize. An award.
Yeah, like terminally online person.
So shit. It's an anti-colonial award named after Putin. So, in the country
After a white guy, like let's even start. Actually, when you talked about this, I thought about us, like talking about these issues right now. It's also a result of our position, like that we are in the West, that we can even articulate this in English. This is also like a huge part of us being white as well. And there's like these dynamics in our conversation as well. And like we at least can start with acknowledging it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. I mean, I talked a bit about my background, but generally, I think that our privileges oblige us to be conducting the research and doing the contribution of pseudo-intellectual labor that we're presenting in here. But generally speaking, it's also a comment I would get under some of the pieces that I write. They're like, we don't need some white people telling us how to live it in Africa. They say, okay, Africa is a big place. But
Where exactly in Africa? Isn't it a country?
yes. There was like this meme article about Melania Trump just landed in the international airport of Africa and went to its capital, like, this kind of stuff. I definitely understand a lot of the things in terms of diversity in the first place, and it's this whole idea only originated from a very socially driven movement in the States per se, but not only. At the same time, I'm a strong believer of the fact that I'm a Marxist, anarchist leaning, but still Marxist. I think that we are trying to present a universalist optic that is focused on the benefit and the fairness, but of the working class. So in this sense, I think that everyone's experiences are very valuable in terms of actually building not only fair situation, but actually working not representation in the sense of a parliament, but like to actually understand the situation. We have to not silence specific people. We need to listen to women in terms of reproductive health and femicide and all the issues that we as working women are facing. Same for trans people, same for queer people, same for migrants, same for people of all sorts of ethnic and cultural heritages. There's no denial about this. However, I also do think that since I'm this, ranter with 2 degrees, I might as well do my fucking research on the topics that not that many people conduct their research on, and actually come to the conclusions that Russia comes to those countries that it claims to liberate from the French post-colonial dictatorship, and do the exactly same thing, but with less pressure about democracy and human rights as the Western countries would do. That should be the point. The point should be seeing how people live, not about making a point or having in Canada they have this thing. I wouldn't be able to recall this. We can put the news somewhere there if you're gonna be doing such a thing. But they had a big conference of a leftist party, and people legit were given tickets or bracelets for every discrimination kind of dimension that they're facing, and those with more bracelets would be first to speak in line. And then there was a lot of confusion because the bracelets were also of different color and such. Don't make Olympics out of this. Just don't do this reactionary bullshit. I'm sorry.
I know what I liked and what I appreciated. Like, we had a common event. We were at together with Sasha, and the organizers of this event, they talked about how they want to include more people of color, for example, because they see that in their community there are very little people of color. I actually reappreciated it after this event, because I went to our local event, our local leftist event, and there was so much conversation, so much talk about how they want to include Jewish people, that they would not think that here people are anti-Semitic. I, as a person who is very critical of Israel, for example, come to this event as a Jewish person, and they start talking about how they support Jewish people and so on and so forth, but it did not feel like they even tried to include Jewish people in this conversation. They were just like Germans talking about their personal feelings of anti-Semitism that have literally nothing to do with reality of anti-Semitism right now. The main drive of anti-Semitism is extreme right. And there's then a talk about extreme right conspiracy theories, for example. Like, why you're just talking about, like, oh, we have, like, this responsibility, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. But the thing is, they just do not even try to include, like, people of color, people of immigrant background, people of Jewish descent. They just, like, all white Germans, they talk to each other about all of these problems.
And somehow not coming to new conclusions, yes. It's
This need for diversity or this need for representation, like, it's on such a basic level, and when people try to do this and they actually, like, succeed in inviting people to the spaces, like, it's all that matters, kind of. It's not that difficult, and it should not be such a, also an extreme point of conversation as well, because it takes sometimes too much space from, like, the conversation that we need to have, obviously, like about campism, for example. We just scratched the surface of it. Yeah, we just talked about what expressions it has, but there's so much more to it. And obviously some people could have questions then, how do I approach, like, international politics if not, like, not to be a campist? And what would you suggest if there are any people who listen to us who are wondering about this? How would you see, like, the perfect, I don't know, the perfect leftist space, let's say so, of people who are trying not to be a campus, who are trying to actually look at situations in more complex, nuanced way.
just to circle back to a couple.
Yeah, let's circle back.
We were corporate girlsies at some point as well. How to be a based baddie. Read a book. No. Okay, no. It's for different thing. But if you're gonna have memes...
Read Sasha articles. You
Okay,
can translate them even if they're in Russian. Number 1.
let's start with the inclusivity and diversity thing. I just want to, I guess, clarify that it's absolutely necessary that different people's experiences and diverse experiences actually fall, like, become a part of the discussion. And what you spoke about is honestly very relevant. I think you remember, but the events that I moderate, I try, if I see that it's mostly dudes, mostly out there, but, like, speaking up, I don't have anything against them per se, but it helps to also articulate the option to the audience, like, by the way, if there's, like, flinty people or whatever group you want to highlight who haven't spoken, that would be a good time. This works, but with the fact that you went to your local gathering and there wasn't really much space for you, even though the topic was about helping your community, kind of. I think that this is one other thing that I forgot to mention regarding the left in here, but then again, it's not just in here. However, because of the highly privileged position of a lot of people who consider themselves left in the West Europe, we're going to be talking about them. The empty solidarity. So, you know, like, we've seen, and I was my mind was blown with the rise of the pro-Palestinian support and truly international solidarity of the last couple of years.
Despite all the propaganda.
Yeah.
Everything. It's
despite prosecution, censorship, like, very real things. We at the podcast that I'm a part of, we made a couple of episodes about Israel. Every time we receive threats, even online in the open, like, it's people get whatever. But despite this, the community really, you know, stood up to the occasion, so to say. Maybe, I don't know how many flotillas will stop a genocide. I don't know if any will, but it's extremely honorable action that I see. But in terms of other things, yeah, like providing Jewish people, supporting Jewish people and not giving them a voice at the event. Or, for instance, and it gets us back to the geopolitical takes and such, but a lot of parties in here in Germany would say that they stand with Ukraine. I understand that, and it's a regular centrist stance all across Europe. That's very standard. It has a lot to do with the general geopolitics, but also, you know, smaller nation, bigger nation, you know all those dynamics. But after 5 years, don't you wanna, especially the leftists, don't you wanna fucking take a look and see that the very elites that are claiming to stand with Ukraine in here are still buying the energy resources, are still helping the fucking oligarchs. No interest in discussing all of this. They need to discuss the arms supplies that they cannot influence anyways, but call the other side fascist. That's and you will not, and nothing will be done. No help in terms of framing the foreign policy, no help in terms of helping the refugees and migrants in here. We're having, like, all around Germany, they're building the new terminals for extraditions. EU has just harshened the legislation for asylum seekers. Nothing. Not a single fucking word. I'm sorry, but like half of the Western European healthcare will be deported with this with this tempo, and not a single fucking thing. And I really do not see any aware energy to invite migrants. Okay, maybe we don't have the right to vote, and as you know, all the power in the world is taken by voting, so that's the most important thing. Irregardless.
Yeah.
So, you know, if Mao said it, yes.
And who is liberal now?
Mao said it. It's in the books, yes. But even though you can learn so much from the migrants, and it's not just about the, you know, like all those safe things of like a cuisine and philosophy and whatever. We legit have the West Europe is more or less what early 2010s in Russian fascization scale, I want to say. That's how I see it. We have some experience. We have outstanding NGOs that are working for information and physical security of people, that are actually like have all those know-hows of building the cyber infrastructure, or of actual organizing or political campaigning or anything. And there's only that many actors, seriously progressive leftists, who are not just, you know, shying away from the access to this know-how, to this knowledge, to our ways to show solidarity. We can't load your political parties or your Antifa networks with money and people maybe right now, but at least let's think of the ways to exchange experience, to exchange the expertise, and to share the material conditions, because we as a migrant community are extremely deprived of them. But then again, like, look at the cause that you claim to stand for and think about the real, maybe small, but real ways to change this. I think this could also be one of the steps in actually answering your question about how to overcome campism. Overcoming campism is a mental thing, but it's an idea thing, but it requires action. So try fucking organizing. I'm telling you, it's great. Don't panic. Organize. Gain real horizontal experiences with people. I'm not saying necessarily you have to be in an anarchist horizontal organization, but try doing something with the people of similar values. You will be surprised that it's really, really hard. No. You will be surprised that you will actually gain a sense of community. And even when talking to your colleagues, don't talk about just like problems. I try to understand that they are systematic. And if this logic of, you know, anti-capitalist deconstruction is applied to your everyday conversations, then it can very much be applied to the conversations about international politics and such. So the most direct advice I'm actually stealing from a great NYU professor, Rasen Jagalov. Rasen, greetings. If you're listening to this,
we forgot to, by the way, to mention all the links and stuff. We need to do this.
Yes, links will be there. He said that overcoming campism can only be done through the class analysis. So it's as hard and as simple as it sounds, but I think that genuinely just getting rid of the paradigm that you're assigned. Are you this or this side? Team A, Team B. There's no option C. There's always option C, the communists.
Guys, we initially planned this conversation to last like 30-40 minutes max, and eventually it was like 1 hour and a half, and it feels like we did not even start to go deeper. We just like talk about some issues that are on the surface. So it's such a huge topic. And if you want us to go deeper, please leave us a comment, thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. And again, I remind you that it's really important to support us in any way possible, also by sharing this video with your friends. This would be a huge support for us, and it would be also very pleasant and very kind of you. Thanks. Okay, bye guys.